Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm the Atom Particle, and welcome to today's video. Today we'll be doing a series retrospective on the Greenbone Saga, written by Fonda Lee. So this will cover Jade City, War, and Legacy. This will be a very spoiler-heavy video and just kind of a general discussion on my thoughts and feelings about this series. If you haven't already read through this series, then I highly recommend doing that before watching this, or you can go back to my other reviews that are completely spoiler free. So you've been warned, from here on out it will be very spoiler heavy. This is going to be an absolute monster of a video to edit, but I hope you enjoy. Right away, just what a series. Like, I've never seen a series just build off the first book like this one's done before. It laid such a solid foundation. The rest of the books just could build upon it and expand on the ideas and just elements that were already in place. Nothing ever popped into existence, and all the characters' actions had a reaction to it. There was always some sort of underlying threat that could affect the characters at any moment, but it was never out of nowhere. It always felt like it was just a natural progression to that, but it still delivered the shock in it and all that it needed to. I'm honestly shocked this hasn't already been adapted to a prestige television show. Like, all the elements are there, and I could see it really just blowing up. It has its share of shocking moments and compelling characters. There's so much to talk about with the series, but I think the best way of doing it is just kind of going over the characters and talking about the character arcs. This story spans about 30 years, which honestly seems like it would be too long for a series like this, but Fonda Lee was really able to use this time frame to really evolve her characters and evolve the world. Nothing is static, and the world and characters are not the same as they were at the start. I remember being so shocked by Lance's death in the first book. That really made it hard for me to do reviews on the entire series without spoiling that. It just set the standard that no one was safe and anyone could die at any minute. It felt like the characters were always on edge, and just one slip up could just cause their demise. And then Lan just served as a sad reminder for all the characters, and his death kind of hung over them for the rest of the series. His death also really made me care and really invested in the characters, as I was just always nervous that they were going to die or be killed off in some way. Going into the characters, I'm just going to start with Hilo, who probably had one of the most dramatic arcs in the series. It was just done masterfully. It was done masterfully. Masterfully. It was done very well. The big good. He went from this hot-headed brawler type of character to a very caring and loving family man who would put his family above all else. His temper and desire to protect still was always there, and sometimes it would manifest just in cruel and resentful ways. Sometimes his perspectives would be kind of hard to read at times, and also just how people viewed him. Like when he found out that his wife was heavily involved in clan business without his knowledge or consent. He held such a deep resentment for her, but it was clear he was doing that because he cares a lot for her, and he felt like his trust in her was betrayed. It was cruel and not the best reaction to what she did, but it felt very true to that character. This need to protect is very toxic and manifests itself in some very jaw-dropping moments. Like the most shocking moment was when Hilo killed Lan's ex-wife and then kidnapped his nephew, or her son, Nico. In this case, he believed that he was doing the best thing for Nico by introducing him into the No Peak clan, but he just went to such extreme lengths, and he truly believed he was entitled to it. All this despite the fact that Nico would probably be better off, or at the very least safer, completely separate from No Peak Clan and its business. Hilo is a very protective person, but it does stem from a very selfish desire. But as the series continues and time flows, he does kind of become more accepting of things outside of his control, like Nico eventually leaving the clan and one of his sons dying. While he mourned both, he was able to accept Nico back into it, the No Peak clan, and he really kind of embraced the fact that it was Nico's choice at the end. And then for his son's death, of course, he was saddened by it and very depressed about it, but he he did accept that loss in a much more mature way, whereas in the first book he probably would have waged an all-out war against the Mountain Clan, despite the fact that they weren't truly responsible for it, like he did after Lan's death. But now that I mention it, there's a lot of parallels between that new generation and the old generation, and just kind of how they play off each other. Both pairs have very similar events happen to them. He does put a lot of effort into reestablishing these relationships with his wife and his nephew, and it just feels very earned, and it's just kind of beautiful how he was able to grow, and they built a stronger relationship from those moments that they stumbled. We also see him not purposely put himself into harm's way like he would have at the start of the series. This is not because he doesn't want to or doesn't think it would be the best or wants to do what's best for the clan, but because his priorities have changed and his values have realigned, and he just can't imagine doing something that would hurt him or his family. He really turned into the pillar of his family, pun intended, and really learned and matured from the people in his life. Another arc I really enjoyed was Andon's. We see him mature from a pretty insecure teenager to really becoming his own person. He really felt like he was kind of lost, wasn't sure what he wanted out of life, and was always kind of trying to gain the approval of others. It wasn't until he was kind of forced into a situation that he was forced to fend for himself that we really get to see him grow as a person and find out who he wants to be. Not to say that he didn't have support, he just did it without the resources of No Peak. I really like how he was able to form his own idea of what a Jade Warrior can be. The idea of a Jade Warrior is very important to all the clans, especially No Peak and Hilo in particular. He was able to overcome his desires to hurt or inflict pain and kind of use his ability to do good and heal. It's a very unique version of the hero's journey, that instead of simply choosing to fight for good, or in this case for No Peak, that he chose to use his ability for something greater, which led him down his own path. By the end, he was very confident in himself and was able to make his own decisions outside of No Peak or without the approval of the others. An example of this is him convincing Make Tar to assassinate one of the crime lords emerging without really gaining the approval of Hilo. He saw what was happening and he kind of just chose to act on his own based on what he believed was best. This is also kind of seen when he confronts Hilo at the end of the second book about him rejecting Jade and about Wen's decision. He explains that he doesn't need forgiveness, but he just needs Hilo to accept and understand why people make decisions that are outside of his control. In both cases, the characters have to let go and move on from their own desires that they may not have realized they were holding on to. I just really enjoyed his journey, and it just felt like everything he did just felt like a natural step in his story. he made mistakes, he made choices that hurt people, and it it was just a very strong coming of age story. Moving on to the next character is Shay, who just remained a solid character for the entire series. She went from desperately not wanting anything to do with No Peak to uh, having this need to fulfill a role that was left after Lan's death. In her role as the weatherman, she constantly butted heads with Hilo, which eventually really made her leave her own mark on the clan. And I think she really did enjoy her position. She was very good at it and found enjoyment in finding different ways to outsmart the Mountain Clan or reinforce Snow Peak Clan. Despite all her success, she did feel like she was missing something. She was always searching for something, and in the third book, it was she realized it was a family of her own. I often compared her to Eight Mata, who were both very strategic minded, very shrewd, and also had this unrelenting ambition. Where they differ is Mata sought power and Shay sought something for herself, but not in a toxic way, but just more in a self fulfillment type of way. She is an incredibly successful businesswoman, has a loving family, and often saved No Peak Clan on many occasions, actually, but she still just wanted something more and something greater than herself. She was just always she was always desperately thinking of how she could do better and how she can improve. I just really liked how she was always striving for something more and was always thinking of things bigger than herself. And then this leads me into Eight Mata, who was a great foil to the No Peak clan. Throughout each book, she was a constant threat to No Peak and always just felt like she was one step ahead. It was only through No Peak's relationships, their allies, and their connections that they were able to overcome Eight Mata. All of this is something she lacked. Ultimately, it was her single-mindedness and her desire for power that led to her downfall. I felt it very fitting that after her defeat, she was just completely, utterly alone and very isolated from everyone. And I guess she always was. It was just kind of because of her status that she didn't appear to be. She was always alone on her journey, and ultimately, that was her fate. I think that's very poetic and just makes for a great villain arc. I also liked how after the bombing of the JLA, that she was wounded from that, and that just really made her appear more human and more vulnerable. It was apparent to everyone that she was not this unstoppable force, and that terrified her. She felt even more closed off from before and was even more desperate, which eventually led her to make that decision to try to eliminate No Peak and kill off the family that would eventually succeed her. In contrast to Hilo, who died surrounded by loved ones and his family and the people he loved in life, she was forced to live the rest of her days just isolated and alone. Another character whose life was ultimately forgotten was Biros. For someone who wasn't part of either of the families, he really was involved and lived through some major events in the novels. He really was the one who put everything in motion. He killed Lan, wore his jade, was involved in the bombing of the GLA unknowingly, and was also present for Rue's death. Despite this, he was really a nobody, as Nico put it. So, through all the espionage, political intrigue, geopolitics, trading, economics, magic, crime drama, mystery, suspense, this was ultimately a story of love and family. I think this is a story that, despite all our success and victories, they can be relatively empty if we just don't have people in our lives to share and celebrate them with. And while I knew this was a story of family, I was still blown away by how a story about magical rocks, inspired by Asian kung fu movies and Asian crime movies was able to deliver such a powerful message so perfectly. I know Fonda Lee finished this series during the pandemic, and it's very apparent that there's themes of isolation and relationships in this series. I think these are themes really everyone can relate to now, especially going through what we did. It's just something I know I can relate to, at least. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the series. I know I got a little sappy there at the end, but yeah, not sure what to say about that. I just think it was a powerful message and it's very relatable now. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you enjoy this video. This is definitely a series I'm looking forward to returning to, and I'm just telling everyone I can about it. I'm still desperately hoping this gets turned into a TV show. All my ratings are on my review videos, so you can go check those out. But overall, this is a great series. I'd say as a series, complete S tier. Go read it. Actually, if you stuck around without reading it, like I think you'd still enjoy it. There's a lot there. Yeah, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.